Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the show today is a legendary songwriter and musician. His work has been done with David Foster and Meatloaf, his hit singles for the soundtrack to the 80s. Please welcome one of the most sincere men in rock and roll, my very first guest, Mr. John Parr. Mr. Parr, how are you today?
How you doing, Chris? Nice to speak to you.
It's great talking to you again. I always learn so much when I speak to you, and I do want to thank you once again for being on the show. You know, I'm a young guy just starting out my career, and having you on as my first guest is an amazing honor for me, so thank you again.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for doing that.
Now, I want to get started first off with Big Bad Silverado, your lead single from The Mission. I was actually listening to it because I have music playing all the time, you know, and I was in the shower and I heard it come on the radio, and I realized what that song's about, and it's sacrifice. The Silverado is the sacrifice that the young man is making in order to join the service. And I was wondering, because I was thinking about you on Tuesday, how did that song start off for you?
It's a true story, actually, Chris. My manager, Barbara Terry, was very heavily and is very heavily involved in the motor industry. And she was doing an interview with some young troops a few years back. And she relayed the story of a young boy that, exactly the story of Silverado, that he dreamed of having this done-up Chevy all his life. His father had one, and he dreamed of it. And he saw 9/11. You know, he enlisted straight after 9/11 and put all thoughts of the Silverado to the back of his mind. And he actually, you know, I just added the line, you know, that he says to his mom, you know, if I don't come home, Mama, don't cry. I'll be driving that big bad Silverado in the sky. And it was really just, like you say, based on a true story.
Yeah, and that lyric that you have in there, the first time I heard it, I thought of like my mom, and if I wouldn't have gone to war, if I hadn't come back, and I honestly almost wanted to cry because it really tugged at my emotions when I heard that the first time. Really
very often with a lot of these songs, the inspiration comes into me so quickly that it is like I'm an audience member. So a lot of these songs choke me up to write. You know, sometimes when I'm just sitting with the guitar or the piano, you know, working the music out, sometimes certain lines just, they destroy me, you know. And so they should, you know, because obviously this is a very emotive subject, and it's the ultimate sacrifice, and, you know, particularly for a young person with their whole life ahead of them. And so, yeah, I mean, it moved me to write it, and it is my intention to entertain people with that song, but then kind of stick the dagger in them to make them think, wow, you know, what sacrifices people are willing to make on my behalf.
And I want to talk a little bit about the creation of The Mission and the perception that I've gotten from it, and I want you to tell me if my perception's correct. And it seems to me that sometimes an artist, whether it be a writer, a painter, or a musician, sometimes when they go out to begin a work, when they pick up that guitar or that instrument, they the work comes through them rather than them setting out to create the work. They become the medium, if you will, for the work to come to life through. Did that happen for you in this case?
Absolutely, totally does. For me, I honestly believe I put my antenna up. I kind of open my head and my heart, and it comes into me. And I have no idea where it comes from. Some of those songs were instantaneous. I mean, they just came through me. Soldier's Wife was a complete instant moment. Enlisted Man was, you know, so many of the songs just, they almost were like they were out there in the atmosphere, and I stuck up my aerial and down they came through me, you know. And it is, you know, I always say that, you know, I have my ability and my skill that I've honed as a musician and my expertise as a lyricist or a record producer. But, you know, sometimes it's like I'm witnessing the song. I hear it entirely.
And you don't even know that it's happening until after the fact, and you look back and it's like, wow, it just came to life. Absolutely true. And I think the most beautiful song on The Mission is Soldier's Wife. The piano and the strings arrangement, how you produced that song and wrote it, it just brings out so much emotion for the listener. What was that like listening back to that with the final cut? When you were in the studio and you heard it for the first time?
I remember the writing of it. I remember just sitting at the piano writing it and being choked up, you know. And the line that always breaks me up, as in your old shirt while we're apart, and that's just that human thing. It was actually, the idea was inspired by the Mel Gibson movie We Were Soldiers, where Gibson is packing his stuff up to leave, and the wife pretends to be asleep because they both can't bear the parting. And that kind of inspired it, and it kind of lived with me a lot. But the mission was kind of written, and Soldier's Wife was very much a last thing. And I just sat at the piano all night, and literally it just came out in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes.
And I find a lot of times that's when an artist makes his best music, is when it's just inspirational 5 minutes and it comes together. Such as you were talking earlier in our last interview with St. Elmo's Fire. You wrote that essentially in a weekend.
Really, absolutely so, and literally, as I say, that, then going back to the hotel room that night and just thinking, I had to think Julie with St. Elmo's Fire because I knew I had to please the film company. And so, but I wanted to honor Rick Hansen and his story of going around the world in the wheelchair, trying to do the impossible in his wheelchair. So there was a slight, if you like, intellectual battle going on. But really, the intellectual battle always lost to the emotional battle. So wherever I was uncertain, I always gave the words from my heart and hoped that the film company would swallow. Because obviously, I was on the film company's dollar with St. Elmo's, and there were just certain lines I thought they're never going to buy this as about their movie. The pair of wheels was obviously they thought it was Demi Moore's Jeep, and I was really singing about Rick Hansen's wheels. But it just, it was kind of one of those meant-to-be things. I think life is like that sometimes, you just have to say, okay, it's inexplicable, I believe this is true, I'm just going to go with it.
And I have to tell you real quick that we start every show with that song. You can ask
really?
My producer, Allison, we always start with that song because I know what emotion that has and the storyline behind that, and I love it, and I always start off with that song.
It's funny, I got an email, somebody on Facebook yesterday said they didn't know what the song was about at all, but they were in a car accident 18 months ago, and the guy lost his leg, and he said every day to push him forward, he played the song. And that, I'm kind of collecting these testimonies, that I think it's that thing about even if you don't know what it's about, you kind of catch the wind of it. You catch the inspiration of it. And all these years later, it's still doing it, which is, it just makes me feel very proud.
It is a fantastic song. And I want to get back to the mission, though. And you've been doing a lot of cool things I've seen on Facebook in connection with the tour and promoting this album, including skydiving with Mike Elliott, a World War II fighter pilot. Tell us about that story.
It's an incredible story. I mean, he was in France as a young man, fighter pilot, the day after D-Day, and he was very low to the ground, and he was strafing enemy troops. And a German fighter came in and cut him amidships and shot out his engine, and he was on fire, and he pulled back the cockpit canopy to bail. And as he did it, two German fighters crisscrossed underneath him, and he thought, this is it, they're going to shoot me down. And the plane's on fire, smoking, he's losing altitude, and the two German fighters pulled up either side of his wingtips. They pulled back their canopies, and they just signaled to him that they were going to guide him to safety. And both these enemies flew into his own lines, and he belly landed at the airfield, and they both saluted and just peeled away. And he just said that's kind of honor among pilots. I just thought, that honor is something that doesn't have to be in war. I wish more people were kind of had that, kind of good Samaritan, if you like, aspect.
That's remarkable that, they transcended their country and just looked at him as a regular person, and that they had to save his life. That they weren't bound by their political affiliation, if you will.
Well, how old are you, Chris?
I'm actually 22.
Are you?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm thinking you sound so young on the phone. You're 22, did you say?
I look like I'm 12.
You're 22, did you say?
I'm 22, yeah.
22. Well, I think he was 24 when that happened, and he said when those pilots pulled back their canopies, They were just young boys. You know, can you imagine your age, what's in your mind and your thought, and suddenly to be thrust into the world of warfare and, you know, death every day, you know, losing your comrades. And maybe, you know, the sun was just shining on them that day, and they just thought, you know what, if that were me, I'd do the same. You know, it's a fantastic story, and, you know, I always tell it because I think it's a great example in life.
Yeah, and actually, I have some friends who are exchange students, and I always wonder, like, what would happen if, you know, war broke out and they were on the other side, and I saw them on a battlefield. Like, how would I respond? Would I honor the country, or would I honor the friendship? And you're kind of faced with that, and it comes down to a moral and ethical decision, and maybe. And
it's one of those, split second. You're going to make that decision in that split second, yeah.
What was it like skydiving? Have you ever done that before?
Never did it before. I always said I would never put my life at risk doing it. And it was just when I knew why Ed was doing the jump, it was to honor his World War II comrades. And I thought, this man is 90 years old, and, you know, if I can't get in a plane and jump out to give honor to him and to everybody else. So much against my better judgment, I did it, and it was an interesting jump because it was what you call a tandem jump, so I was attached to another skydiver, and his name was Mike. And just before we jumped, Mike got a handwritten letter, and it was from George Bush Sr., and George Bush Sr. jumped with Mike attached to him 2 weeks before. So I thought, wow, I'm in great hands here.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Now, when I first heard Boots on the Ground, I immediately thought of my history teacher in high school, who was part of the 82nd Airborne Division. And you capture military life and tell that story so well in the song. I have to ask you, have you ever been in the service? Because you capture it so well.
No, my father was in the Royal Navy. He sailed the world when he was a young man. He said it were the best years of his life. And he served in combat in the Korean War. But I've always been enamored by servicemen and women being prepared to give of themselves, sometimes the ultimate sacrifice. And I just think, you know, we see it reflected in war movies and in stories. But I just think as human beings, you know, it's like being a fireman or a policeman. Sometimes you're absolutely on the thin line between, you know, being in this world or being in the next. And it inspires me so much that I, again, you know, the soldiers say to me, how do you know our story? It's like you've been on the battlefield, or it's like, you know, how could you be Soldier's Wife? Yeah, I mean, if you think about Soldier's Wife, I'm actually singing it as the wife, and yet it never occurs to the listener that it's a man singing it, you know. And I think it's that thing. It's just something about the truth of what you're saying just resonates. It used to happen with Set Almost Fire. A lot of disabled people would say to me, how can an able-bodied person possibly know what we feel? And yet we listen to Set Almost Fire and it's like you're singing our song. That is the greatest. It's the greatest words anyone can say to a writer, that, you know, this was my truth. This was my song. You know, so it's a great reward for me.
John, I really wish that more American artists were passionate like you are, you know, about America, about a cause that you get behind, because it's so refreshing to listen to music and know that the artist really had a passion for what he was creating. And you have been going around to military bases on your own dollar and playing for the USO, correct?
I have, yeah. You know, we did it last night. We played for a small group of veterans last night. Again, you know, for love. And it was the birthday party of a veteran, and he was a quadriplegic amputee. He'd lost every limb, and it was his birthday. He was only a young man, John. He was only like probably 25, and it was my honor. There were some Vietnam vets to be there, and it was just you know. It was an easy thing for me to do because it's honoring, and it's you come out of it the other side feeling better for doing it, and it's kind of recharges my batteries. Sometimes I'm out here in America and it's tough for me, you know, I'm trying to get a platform for people to listen to what I'm trying to say and do, because I do care so much about this tsunami of returning boys and girls that are going to come back with combat stress and are going to be, you know, I don't know if you know, 22 weeks ago, 23 young Marines out of the service committed suicide in 1 week. and this is why I'm here, because I want to raise awareness and money for that. And sometimes I feel nobody can hear me, you know, and just playing sometimes last night and meeting young people like yourself, Chris, as well, you know, getting it at your age, getting an older guy like me that, you know, hopefully what I'm trying to do transcends my generation, transcends the genre of music, and you know, it's just a pure message with, you know, that I think is without demographic. And it's, you know, it's frustrating for me sometimes. And so when I play for these people, it really energizes me again to get up the next day and do the same.
And it has to be rewarding because you're interacting with those who need it the most. I mean, you've created it for them, and you can see that interaction right there. And that's why I love music, because the artist is on the stage and the fans are right there, and you can interact instantly with them. It's not like a film where, you know, the actor never sees his fans. The artist is right there, and they really can, like you said, recharge off their audience. It's really remarkable, I think.
Very much so, very much so. And it's funny, a big change has come over me, certainly in how I make records. The Mission was a very quick record for me, a lot of which was to do with my deadlines that I had to get back to America. So where I'd be normally take a week a track, you know, to record and finish, you know, with The Mission, it was very quick and instinctive, because I was thinking, you know, I wanted it to be almost live, if you like, that people were kind of getting the kind of the buzz and the squeak and the odd kind of imperfection, that it was just, you know, tidal of emotion.
Now, I want to switch gears for a moment and talk about your song, Under a Raging Moon, that's coming out on Rock Band for Xbox 360. Because I was checking out the preview for it on YouTube last night. It looks really cool. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, it's now the official release. It was actually officially released now yesterday.
Okay.
And what it is it's a song I wrote for Roger Daltrey way back. As a tribute to the Who. My manager before was with the Who from the very beginning, and he actually started out as Keith Moon's drummer. So I know every Who story and almost every Keith Moon story. And I thought nobody really wrote a song about, you know, what was an iconic band and certainly one of the, you know, handful of the most memorable drummers. And so I wanted to write a song, again, with a double meaning, under a raging moon, meaning under the raging Keith Moon, but also under the raging moon, that playing a gig at Woodstock, the comet outreach, and the mad, the insanity of rock and roll in its infancy, and of Keith Moon powering this thunder out. And Roger recorded the song. It was his biggest hit ever in America. I never did it, and I thought I should record it. So I recorded it. And then, of course, Rock Band, right out the blue, started to take interest in my music, took Sound Was Fire, Naughty, and Under a Raging Moon. And of course, it really excited me because it's bringing me to a very new audience, young audience. And so excited by what we're doing, they agreed to take the Mission. So the whole of the Mission to on Rock Band too. So, I mean, it's the digital age. You know, people talk about, oh, I'm an animal man, and you know, I love animals. You know, the digital age is for me both from an online perspective and having media like John America, but also being able to, you know, even with Twitter, being able to say, hey, I got out of Hamburg this morning, whatever. I can say that people, you know, hopefully inspires them daily. I'm looking at this kind of modern technology.
Yeah, and even with Facebook, like, I feel that I'm actually on tour with you. It's really cool being able to interact like that. And I saw that you're actually doing a music festival on September 23rd in Bethlehem, PA with John Waite and Tommy Two-Tone.
I am.
It's going to be a bit of a drive for me, but I would really love to see you bring these songs to life. And I'm going to try my best to make it down there and see you play.
Well, it's going to be a short set. That's the only thing. I don't want to disappoint. I mean, I'm going to give it my all, Chris, but I'll be probably just doing like 4 or 5 songs on that show because it's quite a heavy bill. But me, how, you know, if I'm playing one song at 10, I just you know, leave the stage with nothing left. So I'd love to see you there. That'd be great.
All right, I will definitely try and make it. And before we go, I want you to tell the fans where they can find the Mission and where they can find out more information about where you'll be playing next.
Well, the Mission, you know, we need all the help we can get. We're trying to spread this message. So I would just say, you know, if you listen to this music and you like it, spread the word, because the word of mouth is the most precious thing. You can buy the record. What would really help us is getting it from Walmart.com, because we're on a test period with Walmart. It's very difficult to get into Walmart, and Walmart are going with me. The physical records for sale in the Carolinas only. If we sell good, we'll go national. But people can buy it nationally on Walmart.com. Yes, you can get it on iTunes and JohnParrAmerica.com, but they could really help us by going on Walmart.com at this stage and buying the record, because that will make us go nationwide. And, you know, this is a nationwide message for America. The money's going to go to the USO, to US and to military families. But more importantly, it's really raising this message. And like you say, even with a young person like yourself, that you kind of get it and think, I think it empowers you. I'm sure that when you listen to it, you think, you know, what your stories are or whatever you're going out in the world to do. My music is designed, if you like, from my heart to empower people to go forward and get and make their dreams reality.
Yeah, and I like I told you, I have bought it and I ordered the hard copy. I'm going to give a couple copies to my friends who are in the ROTC program, try and spread the word a bit. And but unfortunately, we are kind of running out of time. We have another show coming in. But Mr. Parr, as always, it has been a pleasure. It's been a learning experience and truly an honor speaking with you again today. Like I said, you were my first guest and an amazing honor. Thank you again.
Well, God bless you, Chris, and you're a credit to your generation.